Welcome to Marcos and James, the Lisbon Pirates podcast. Good morning, Tiago.
Good morning, Mark.
How are you today?
I'm fine. And how are you?
I'm good. I'm
Yes,
good.
feeling good?
Lisbon is a buzz. Lisbon is in an exciting point of the year where
Yes, it is.
everything is coming alive. Why is that?
Probably because of our festas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how would you call our June festivities? How would you talk about our festas with someone coming from the outside?
Oy.
How would you
Well,
explain that?
Well, what's the biggest one? The biggest one is 13th of June, and that would
Yes.
be Sant Antonio, right?
Exactly.
So, how would we describe that?
It used to be, I think, it used to be a kind of religious
Right.
festivity.
Sure.
Yeah. But right now, yes, we say it belongs to Santo Antonio, Saint Anthony, but probably people don't feel that religious when they are having the center of Lisbon at
Right,
the
right.
13th of
Right.
June.
And so we would say it's just a city holiday, right? Because
Yes.
it's not the whole country of Portugal,
Yes.
but it's just a city holiday
Yes.
for Lisbon.
And it will depend on the city where you are in Portugal, because if you're in Porto, the there you'll be celebrating São João,
Right,
so
right, Saint John, right.
and in Sintra, just nearby, you'll be celebrating Saint Peter, São Pedro.
Okay,
So
okay.
it will depend.
Changes,
Yes,
right.
yes.
Depending on what do we call it, the patron
Yes.
saint of the city,
Yes.
or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
Okay. And so it's an exciting time. Have you
Yes.
ever been downtown in the Baixa or the Chiado or
Yes,
the
yes.
when this happens?
I have been there. I generally say been there, done that, bought the shirt. So
Don't want to go back?
Yeah. No, when we were having our babies, so beginning late 30s, we were having babies. So during that time, you didn't want anything to do with
Right.
Festas de Lisboa, because it was just a big confusion. But now Ruth is 40, I'll be 40, you are 40.
I'm 40.
One
It's
week
true.
ago. Yes.
It's true.
But right now you start entertaining the idea of, it would be great if we could have some sardines again, and so it will depend on the season you're living, I think.
That's true. I think for us, we've actually never gone downtown during this big festa.
You should.
But what we've done is we've always gone with our friends to a festa closer to the house. So like Carnide or somewhere
Yes.
where it actually there's bands and there's
Yes.
dancing and there's lots of fun activities until 2, 3 in the morning.
Yes.
But it's not the crazy
Yes.
confusão. It's not the mess of being downtown.
Even right now, going to a place not so near the center is what gets me more excited.
Yeah.
Because if you're going really to the center, Castelo de São Jorge or Avenida da Liberdade,
Right.
It's lots of fun, but it's real. It's tons and tons of people.
Yeah, and I would say like once in your life, you have to go down and
Yes.
see.
Yes.
What do we call them?
We call it marchas populares. So
How do we translate that? What is that?
popular marchings. I don't know if it would make sense, because it's this kind of fanfare. I would just say this big. Coming from each neighborhood of Lisbon,
right.
you have a musical number,
Right.
a musical setting.
So there's
happening.
dancers, there's
singing,
singers,
yes.
and usually it's a big group, right? Maybe
Yes.
40, 50 people that do a
Yes.
number,
Yes.
and they kind of pass by, and then
Yes.
they judge it, right? And so
Yes.
there's a winner
Yes.
after the
Yes.
big procession.
I have never been present from the beginning till the end of one of the marchas populares. I've seen when I was a kid, because the TV would transmit that, and I've been in the place just for 5, 10, 15 minutes, but I've never been there the whole time, because probably it can get a little
It's
boring.
hours and hours and hours,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
Yeah.
And the fun generally is going to the castle, Castelo de São Jorge, and yes, and dancing in some of the arraiais. How would you translate arraial?
I have no idea.
Because it's an Old Testament expression when the people would gather around and have some festivity.
Right.
You have the word arraial.
Interesting.
But I have to check.
I should look that up.
What is the English translation of that?
And so, and then of course the tradition is you eat sardines.
Yeah, sardines.
And anything that you would drink with that.
Yeah, sangria, beer. What's the name of sangria in English?
Sangria. That's what it is. Sangria.
But you can go.
Just maybe say it more like an American. Sangria.
But you can ask for a sangria in an American pub and get sangria.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's called sangria.
It's called sangria. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
So like they don't translate it. It's just what it is. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't know that.
But it's immensely popular. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Sangria. You can have some bifanas. How would you translate bifanas?
Maybe like pork sandwiches.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
It sounds better when you say bifana.
Yeah. Yes.
It sounds more exotic, maybe.
Yes. And you go dancing and you make the little. Here we say you make the comboio. You make the little train. You go, and so you put your hands on some strange's shoulders.
Yeah.
Not in embracing, but from the background.
Can we do that on Saturday when we have the sardinada at our church?
Yes. Probably we could, but remember, as you know, I'm a recovering legalist. So I don't know if dancing. We could have some problems because of that.
So we can't do a comboio?
Because that's a good question that you're making. Because in an evangelical background, it used to be. It wasn't kosher for you as an evangelical to go to the saints' festivities.
Right.
So, festividades dos santos. And so right now, our generation is okay with that. But
so did everybody do it? They just didn't talk about it on Sunday?
10 years ago, it worked like that. Yeah. You'd go and you not tell your pastor. Right. But right now, you go and you take your pastor with you. Right. So I don't know if we are better, but we reached that point.
Yeah, good.
Yes, but what do we want to talk about, Mark?
Yeah, well, we figured we'd just jump into a big topic.
Yes.
Like a major topic. And so I would put this warning out there if there are smaller children that are listening to this podcast right now, that maybe it'd be a good time to stop this and make sure they're out of the room before we continue. Because we want to talk about pornography.
Yes.
And the issue of pornography. And because we're two pastors in this context, we'd love to talk about pornography in the context even of the local church. We can talk maybe about culture as a whole, but we really want to talk about pornography and what is the Christian response to pornography. So there it is. It's a big topic.
Every time you have a podcast, at least from the podcasts I know coming from an evangelical background, you always have to go and address pornography because pornography, it's really a big problem in our culture.
Absolutely.
And so generally, one of the great things about being Christian is that you can go and you can be against pornography, which is a very liberating thing because right now, I don't know, in a more secular setting, I don't know if people are free to be against pornography, because when you're against pornography, in a way, people will look at you as a kind of backwards redneck. I don't know if...
Which is so ironic, though, to me, because the more and more we talk about women's rights and protecting women and fighting against the sex trade, wouldn't it make a lot of sense to be against pornography at that point?
Yes, but for that, Mark, I think people would have to have some kind of moral definition.
Sure.
And I think we are afraid, as a culture, as a Western culture, we are afraid of moral definitions because I was reading, I don't remember where, but I was reading an article, a serious article about women getting into porn, and the tone of the article was kind of it was, in a way, it was celebrating that right now women are free to say that they enjoy porn.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the place we're in.
Right.
So as Christians, we belong to a minority that really can say this is bad, and this is the place where we're coming from, having this conversation. We really think this is bad. Probably both of us have endured in the past some kind of problem with porn. Thank God I was never deep into porn, but I've seen enough to know that it's bad. It worked bad for me. It worked bad for my marriage. And thank God it was something that the Holy Spirit began calling me out of that, and with the help of my wife, Anna Ruth. And this is something that I always try to say to other couples here in our church, at least asking them not to hide anything from each other, not from the church, but at least from each other. What's your
and that's such a hard thing, is because I think like you're talking about, pornography is so permissive in our culture at large, and because of that, I think that it enters into even Christians' lives, Christian men primarily, and I think we could even talk, like you said, about Christian women too. The fact that pornography now is acceptable to men and women in our culture. And so, I think that identifying that, and then identifying how we can address this as a church or as pastors or as a congregation is so key, because I think, wouldn't you say that this subject is somewhat taboo within the church or within the culture at large? We don't necessarily talk about pornography a lot.
At least I feel it's still uncomfortable.
Sure.
Even let's picture this. Picture that you're preaching a sermon. Even having to use the word pornography during a sermon, it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, right. And what is the root of it there? Why is it so uncomfortable to us? Is it because, obviously we know pornography is sin, and it's something that is not pleasing to God. But at the root of it, what would you say is there that makes it so uncomfortable?
Let me try to answer, but first let me make you a question.
Yeah.
It can sound like a stupid question, but why, if someone would ask you, Mark, why is it bad? Why is it against God? Why is pornography bad and something against God?
Yeah, I would say it falls under in the line of sexual impurity. And so when we talk about sexual impurity, pornography is a way to access, whether it be images or on television or internet, whatever it is, access what I think God has created, but in a way that is unhealthy and sinful. And so it's accessing or putting yourself into those images, but not in the way that God designed for the body to be viewed or the body to be enjoyed. And I think really that's so important that we have a starting point. Because if we say like God created all people, and God created our bodies, we're intellectual beings, we're physical beings, and sexual beings as well. And so if God created all that and created man and woman to enjoy that in a marriage relationship, then we say that's a great thing that God created. But then what we do is, I think pornography, what it is that perversion of what God has created.
But let's imagine that then you have a second question, and someone asks you, why is the body so important? Aren't you giving too much of credit to something like the body? It's only the body. It's not that important.
Right. And I think that's what the unfortunate thing. That's what pride culture says. Is it's just your body. I mean, it's okay. Explore, experiment, be free. And I think, and we were mentioning this even before the podcast, is that what pornography does is it really traps us and creates a prison where we can't express who God has truly made us to be in a way that helps us emotionally, physically, spiritually, and sexually. And so pornography, I think, distorts that and starts to play against the image of God in us, and starts to really take that and distort it and change it and ruin it.
So you're saying that our body carries with it God's image?
Exactly. And so at the root of that is God's image in each one of us, in each man and each woman. And so by distorting that, we start to mess with that, and of course what pornography does is invite all of that distortion into our lives, whether you're viewing something or whatever it is, whatever. I mean, because pornography can take on a lot of forms.
So you could say that our body, for someone who believes in Jesus Christ, one of the consequences is that we view our body as some kind of it's a sacred thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think to look at it any other way would be to not to value what God has created. And so isn't it ironic that, like, when we're thinking about like what the definition of idolatry is to worship the created thing instead of the creator.
Yes.
Isn't it interesting how maybe pornography even is that worship of the created order instead of allowing God to define and worshiping God?
Yes, and I believe one of the very confusing things about pornography, it attacks both ways, because in a way people will say, so they can justify pornography, they say it's only our body.
Right.
But in another way, they say it's our body. From the first standpoint, they will see their own bodies as cheap things. They can do whatever they want to.
Right.
But from another standpoint, they will look at their bodies and their sexual necessities as dogmatic things they will have to answer to. And that's why I believe for us Christians, we have to understand that pornography is so pervasive, because pornography uses everything it can use. So it uses the narrative, it's only a body, it's not that important, and it's your body, you have to respect your body, you have to live up to your own physical necessities. And I think we have to be prepared to that. But you were making a question, because I made some questions to you. What was your question?
What was the question? Well, let's just go here. When you see pornography, whether it's in our culture or within the church, what are some of the consequences that come as a result of having pornographic material, or viewing pornographic material, or entering that into your soul and into your marriage or into just your life?
I would follow what you were saying about our bodies being sacred things. You become a desecrator.
Yeah.
Desecrator. You become an involuntary desecrator. You don't mind, because you're not understanding that. You're trying to make of great things small things. You're trying to think about really bad stuff as not that bad stuff.
Right.
And you like you were saying, you get into an unconscious captivity of yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it will change the way that you look at other people.
Yeah.
Because you look at other people as not necessarily sacred things that came out of the Word of God, because God creates us by His Word, but you look at them as some kind of physical depositories. I don't know if this makes sense.
Yeah, like a physical object that you...
And you engage someone mostly out of what that person's physical
right, their attributes or their characteristics or whatever.
Making yourself.
Right.
So suddenly you're not engaging a person. You're just engaging. And I know this is a cliche, but it's a true cliche. You're engaging an object.
An object, right? Yes. And I think that's so fascinating, because isn't it true that, number one, pornography isn't victimless? So, like, the guy that connects to the internet and goes to pornographic sites, it's not victimless in the sense of there are real women that have to, and a lot of times it's associated with the sex trade. A lot of times it's associated with dominance and power and all this kind of stuff. And there's some really dark, bad things happening behind all of what's being made. And so it's not just this kind of liberation of sexuality and people are loving what they're doing. There's actually some really, really horrible consequences behind it. So So when a man is connecting to the internet and seeing that, he's participating in a really dark side of humanity, isn't he?
The problem is that because pornography gets can be portrayed as some kind of intellectual emancipation. Just to give an example, you always have these porn actresses coming and telling their stories. But even when they are telling their stories, and pornography already is something that belongs to their past, generally the tone is that I am free, I did that, I don't have to be ashamed of that. So the tone when talking about pornography right now, at least in some cultural settings, it doesn't so much follow the horrible system and industry you have behind that, but generally follows personal stories as emancipation stories. And so it gets more difficult because you get porn actresses or porn actors that are viewed as achievers. So they have their own story. So they went there, but they are not ashamed. So, and it really gets complicated because it blinds you to the other really dark stuff happening.
I would even say the way we talk about pornography influences how we think about it. So, for instance, here's something. I don't know if you've ever thought of this or heard about this, but people love to take pictures of food, and they do the hashtag and they say food porn.
Yes.
And to me, I hate that. And here's why. Let me explain to you. I know maybe listeners have done that in the past, and I'm not trying to jump on that, or I'm not trying to...
Let them repent. Let them repent.
But it drives me crazy because I think even the words we choose, our words have meaning, and our words have power. So when you associate something like, oh, it's just food porn or hashtag food porn, aren't we just kind of saying, we're making it okay in a sense? We're saying, we're kind of softening the blow. We're softening the idea that pornography is at its root evil.
And you know that, and there's you're right, because there's this connection that right now, and we are not trying to make little of something so dangerous and bad as pornography, but it's true that in a way, pornography gets so pervasive in our lives that we suddenly go on. Relating ourselves to other things just the way that we relate to pornography. Even the showing everything good that you have, in some way it works for some kind of spiritual impurity, because you no more have barriers in terms of what belongs to this space and what doesn't belong to that. And I would say that probably, and that's why it's so sad, an hashtag like food porn, because there's some kind of pornography, even it can be, there can be, I'm not saying that you're making a grave scene if you take a picture of what you're eating, but probably there's a connection there that we are kind of numb right now to perceive that, because we are a porn culture. Yes, we are.
Yeah, absolutely. A society obsessed with itself and with image.
Yes, because it's like if you don't have the ability to show your happiness, you lose your happiness. I know that this because it's something that really for me it's still a struggle. When I decided to end my regular Facebook account. I have a Facebook account, but it's the one that you have to put a like there. I don't know.
What's because you're famous?
And probably I should just take that out.
No.
But when I decided not to engage with other Facebook accounts, I remember it was Ruth's birthday. And I remember I was worried about what I was going to post on my Facebook page.
Yeah, something meaningful and significant. And if you didn't,
I was more worried because of that about what I was going to say to my wife on her birthday. So and I thought, man, this is not healthy. I'm thinking first about the likes I'm going to get if I write something inspiring.
Let me tell you this. I mean, even I just turned 40, and even my brain is in this like process of sanctification. Even my thoughts and how I process things. Hannah, my wife, she didn't say anything on Facebook. And it kind of annoyed me at first. It annoyed me. I'm like, I'm turning 40. Like, you should have this beautiful poem or, complimenting me or saying something like, happy birthday to my, love who's turning 40, And I turned to her and I said, yeah, you didn't say anything on Facebook. Like her presence or the whole day we spent together wasn't enough.
Yes.
And I realized, and I thought, oh my goodness, how stupid of me to think that was more important. But isn't that all connected? All of that is connected. The way we think, the way we process, the way we give ourselves to certain things. And pornography is that. It's the giving of your very soul to those things.
And do you know, I think pornography, and of course right now we are putting all of this together. And I really believe they should be together, at least because the thing about pornography, the thing about our will to be online, convincing other people of our own happiness, it is a great difficulty with accepting our human boundaries.
Yeah, exactly.
We are not omnipotent.
Omnipotent, yes. That's a great way to put it.
And so, because even in pornography, Mark,
you become omnipotent.
Yes.
You're the one that controls what you see, how you see it, when you see it, to what extent. I mean,
and that's why pornography is a lie about sex.
Right.
Because pornography attracts because you think I'm a sexual being, and in a way, pornography helps me express my sexual identity.
Right.
But it's really the opposite, because when you are married, you know that the way that you are going to express yourself sexually, it's way beyond yourself. It's way beyond what you feel like, what you want to do or you don't want to. Of course, I would say that in a good Christian's married life, of course, you're going to use sex as a means of expressing yourself. Also, that belongs to the picture. But sex is much more.
Right, much more. And that's a good point, because what I'd like to say is that I think and I'm speaking to couples, married couples, but what pornography does is it's a shortcut. It's an absolute shortcut around the marriage relationship and the sexual union that God has created and established. And so what it does is pornography is instant gratification for myself, right? And I realized, and I've seen this happen over and over and over, because in our marriage, I realized that in order to have sex with my wife and to have that healthy, good relationship with her, it's not just showing up and saying, okay, let's have sex.
Yes.
There's something beautiful about how God created it, and it's difficult. Sometimes I can't be a jerk to my wife all day long and expect that, But what is pornography? Pornography is I can be a jerk.
I can be a jerk.
And I can have what I want.
Yes.
And I think it's so dangerous because it creates this short circuit in our lives, in our brains, in our sexual way of expressing ourselves, and the consequences are horrible.
Yes. And we just become people who don't know how to understand what's sacred, what's holy, what has superior quality. We just do this terrible mixing up of everything together, like I'm thinking about our married lives, our lives as Christian couples, and yes, I wanted to make you a question because of this. One of the real problems I believe that's happening inside our own churches is that although you have Christians that really believe in their sinful nature, lots of times people are not talking about this. And I want to concentrate more on men. Yeah. And men just are not sharing with their wives their own struggles with porn. And this is in a way, I think it's more scandalous not to admit than... of course, I'm not saying it's worse one thing or the other, but if you're a Christian and if you really believe that you are a sinner and you are not confessing that to your wife, you really should. What would you say some men, some Christian men here listening, so that they can really go and repent of their.
I would say this. I would say pornography is sin, and so it's important to establish that, and to say that what sin produces in us is guilt, fear, and shame. And so what pornography does in our lives, in a man that's practicing pornography or viewing pornography, is it's going to produce fear and guilt and shame. And so there's going to be a fear of telling your wife, this is what's happening, and admitting that and getting help, and saying, I'm going to work hard to not do that, and to turn away from sin, and to embrace the marriage relationship that God has given us. And so I would say that when we're confronting fear and shame and guilt that pornography produces in us, there really is only one way to deal with that, and that it really is the cross of Jesus. Because only by the cross of Jesus we understand that our guilt and our shame and our fear is taken away, that Jesus exhaustively answers those questions that sin produces. And so really, by turning to Jesus, I think we can, with his help and with his understanding of who we are, we can approach our wives and say, listen, I'm a sinner saved by grace. And because of this, I want to confess my sin of pornography. And I want to have Jesus deal with my sin and my shame and my guilt, so that we can come together how he intended it for us to be in a marriage relationship.
Yes. And do you agree that sometimes we as men, we function like these really stupid walking contradictions? Because in a way, if you are being tempted with porn, you don't want to be seen as someone tempted by porn, and so you try to you are just faking someone that you're not, but at the same time that you're faking, you're being burdened because of that,
and it will crush you. It will crush you. It'll crush your marriage. It will crush your children, because the pattern that you're establishing in your life is destructive. And so I would just encourage Christian men, because we're talking right now Christian men, to just go to the cross and to allow Jesus just to continue to give strength in facing this. And I want to say you're not alone. Because there's guys like me and you who I think we've recovered from that. We've had, in the past, we've had issues with that, but I think by the grace of God we're working on that, and it's a process. And God can. I think the hope is that God can set you free. God can give you a healthy, balanced, good relationship with your wife and your children, and how we deal with other women and stuff. And so that's the hope that I think that we've discovered, and that we want to say, is that there's hope in this. There's hope to get free from the addiction of pornography.
Yes. I would just add two things, and I will try to put that in a very simple way. First, be a man and confess. Confession is one of the more manly things you can do.
Absolutely.
Go and confess to your wife. Show her the person that you really are. But believe. And the second thing is, you already said that. It's the more important thing we've been talking about. It's Christ. It's Christ. Because if we wouldn't have Jesus, man, we wouldn't have hope. But we have Jesus, and Jesus lived a completely pure life.
That's right.
And generally we go, but he was God. He would be remember the purity of Jesus' life came also from his humanity.
That's right.
And because of that, we know that as humans, we are not God like Jesus was, but Jesus was also human. So we can live a redeemed humanity. So the second thing I would say to you is, man, you have really to trust in Jesus, that he can give you a pure life. You can really live without the burden of pornography.
That's right.
We've been experiencing that.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, we are still humans. We still feel tempted.
That's right.
But we've been living for some years right now with any kind of porn, at least any kind of pornography. I'm not talking about food porn right now, or book porn, or other kinds of hashtag porn But yes, so be a man, confess to your wife, Second, because of Jesus, you can live a pure life.
Right. Well, here at Lapa, we tackle the hard subjects, don't we?
Yes.
So we'd like to end this podcast by saying, like we usually do, welcome to Lapa.
Yes, welcome to Lapa, and it would be great if you know someone, or if you have some kind of suspicion that you have a friend dealing with the problem.
Right.
Go and
If
go
you
and
have a
send
friend,
them the link.
Yeah, we'd love for you to talk more about this. And of course, me and Tiago are always available to talk more about this and to counsel people as well in the midst of your struggle against pornography.
Yes.
All right. We'll see you at Lapa.
See you at Lapa.